We are officially live. So I'm here with David Martin. David and I have been working together for years now. He's also in Miami. Dude, we should have just sat in the same room for this. I don't know why I didn't think about that. But David and I have done a lot of work together. David is the architect behind a lot of our website designs, including the blueprint training. His specialty, though, is really UX, which is what I see as a lot of the marriage between marketing and design. So welcome, David. Tell us a little about yourself.
Just a brief overview of me. I actually started out as a graphic designer studying business.
A lot of work together. David is sorry, go ahead.
So I actually started as a graphic designer studying business, and I wanted to get into building websites and building technology. So I started learning WordPress and I started learning, different website builders. At that point, I realized that I needed to double up my knowledge and my technical skill. So I decided that I would learn how to become a full stack developer. So I actually invested in a coding boot camp, and this was about 3 years ago, where I learned full stack development, so front end, back end, all that good stuff. But when I graduated coding boot camp, a lot of people, they were trying to go and get jobs. I was actually trying to freelance, and what I realized was that the same problem that a lot of developers have is that they just build whatever someone will tell them to build, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, whether it's actually going to lead to accomplishing business goals or not, right? At that point I realized that it was stupid to have all this technical knowledge and to know how to build and design websites without actually figuring out how to optimize the user experience, how to do research, and how to figure out how to build the right thing before we ever have to go and start paying for designers and start paying for developers, because that can be a very, very lengthy and cost-intensive process. So for the past 2 years, I've been working as a user experience strategist, mostly working with agencies, B2B clients, or startups, and just taking a look at what their website is doing currently and what they want it to do, and trying to more closely align the business goals with the experience that we're funneling users through.
So let's talk a little bit more about the UX process and how this fits into the overall marketing and design, right? Like I said, I look at UX as the bridge between what marketers, particularly SEOs, when we're talking about like keyword research and on-page, and really being able to translate those requirements into a properly built and optimized page, right? So you've done work at agencies before, particularly SEO agencies. How does UX fit into that process? Like, do they do the keyword research on page and then ask you for designs? Like, how do you see UX fitting into the overall marketing, particularly SEO process?
So it's interesting. Every agency handles it a little bit differently. I find that the smaller SEO agencies end up having it be an afterthought. So here's a very common thing that I come across. A client is running, or a client hires you to run Facebook ads, right? Go and get some traffic to their e-commerce shop. The click-through rates are high, right? The targeting that you're doing for the keywords or for the audience is a high intent audience. But for some reason, they're not converting in checkout, right? They're just dropping off like flies. At that point, it becomes really obvious that you need a UX specialist to kind of take a look to see why people are dropping off. And more often than not, it's one of three things, right? Either the value proposition is not clear, right? And you have no unique selling points on the site. So it's very, very convoluted and difficult to figure out for your average user what it is that you do. Or right, it's very difficult to find what action as a user you want me to take, right? If it's going to submit a demo request or a lead form or buy a product, it needs to be super, super clear what you want me to do. And the final thing that I find really, really hurts a lot of agencies and a lot of e-commerce shops is that they don't spend enough time building trust with their users. And this is really where I think it comes in to SEO and digital marketing and content strategy, right? Is that you need to first warm up your audiences and build them trust, give them value before they're willing to subscribe or buy anything from you, right? No one wants to go and visit a website and buy a product that has no reviews, no testimonials, no star rating, nothing, right? It makes you feel unsafe. It makes you feel like your credit card information might be stolen or the product might not be at the quality that you think it is. So making sure that you're building up these trust signals on your website, super important. So what I like to do is I like to partner with SEO agencies or freelancers to work on these specific problems that we're having with optimizing conversions and nurturing users down the funnel, so that again they could actually lead towards fulfilling some of the business goals that we have.
Sure. And when it comes to, so like you talked a lot about audience a little bit in your intro there. I actually think audience is probably the most underrated marketing tactic, like really understanding who your audience is, especially in today's world where people are so polarized. Like we tend to pick a side. And even if we're on the other side of it, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But when it comes to marketing and UX, it's really important to understand exactly who it is that you're trying to sell to, right? Like with the blueprint, we identified that early on. I think a lot of people also make the mistake of thinking, well, if I focus just on agencies, we're selling an SEO training. What about all the other people that need SEO training, right? So like, can you talk a little bit about the audience research process and like how small of a niche is too small? You know, like kind of what's your opinion on that?
There is no niche that's too small unless the product that you're selling is just not scalable in terms of production. But I've seen people selling slime online for $10, right? Slime ASMR. It's a super low budget product, but these shops are selling out massively because they know who their audience is and they know who to target, right? I think that it's really important to spend some time upfront talking to your customer the way that we're talking right now, and trying to figure out what are some of the problems that you're having and trying to figure out what are some ways that I could help. If you could actually have these discussions with your customers, it's going to lead to a much better overall user experience on your website because you'll be able to address those exact pain points for those personas that you have, right? And it's important to make a distinction between primary and secondary personas, right? Where maybe your primary persona is a SEO agency owner, right? But you also have all these secondary personas, a freelancer who wants to learn SEO, right? Someone who may be an entrepreneur running their own business who wants to learn SEO. These aren't necessarily the ones that you're spending money marketing to, right? But there should be an optional user path on your website for them to find the solution that they're looking for, right? If you go to any B2B software site, it's really obvious that a secondary persona for them are enterprise clients, because let's say 1 or 2% of all the users that you have on your site are are actually enterprise clients, meaning they're more than 100 or 200 people companies, right? So we don't want to prioritize that because it's 1% of users. But if we close, right, an enterprise deal, the contract is 10 times as big as it would be normally, right? So you want to make sure that you're accounting for those secondary users as well and trying to make it easy for them to go and actually convert.
Right. So I actually wrote an article last year that was talking about like the marriage between UX and SEO, and really what the crux of my argument was that a lot of what we as SEOs look at, like on-page optimization, should really start being pushed to a UX, I guess, designer, for lack of a better term, right? I mean, in terms of people getting started with UX, because UX it could be viewed as a function of design as well, right? Design, like I think of design as UX and UI, right? Somebody who's doing the user flows, the journeys, understanding the marketing implications of things, and then the UI person who is putting the logos, the fonts, the colors, you know, the patterns, design styles, all that thing, right? So this can be a little bit daunting, I think, especially for some of the smaller agencies out there thinking like, dude, this sounds awesome, but like, you know, going through these kind of like interview process, like how does somebody begin, especially like the agencies, like how does somebody begin to bring UX in-house? Or is this something that you think that they should outsource to a specialist? You know, like how do you see that grow, like an agency growing this division inside?
So from my experience, bringing UX in-house can be very costly, especially if you're a relatively small team. Let's say you're a 10-person agency, right? You have maybe two partners up top, maybe a couple strategists, and then other people that are below that are actually working on the deliverables and pumping things out. At that point, bringing a UX person in might be a little bit more difficult just because they're going to have have to get familiarized with your clients and with your clients' needs. They're going to have to get familiarized with your current process. So whatever framework it is that you're using in your agency to run SEO, they're going to have to learn that and try to integrate with it as best as they can. I think for larger companies, it makes a lot of sense when you don't have just one UX person, right? When you can actually have a group of UX people that are taking that on-page suggestions from the SEO team and then are saying, okay, how can we implement this? Let's go out, do some research. Let's go out and prototype a couple different options, and then we can actually go and put them in front of clients or in front of potential users. But for smaller agencies, I think that it makes a lot more sense to work with a strategist, right? So you said that there's, right, it's very closely married to design, and I do agree. But I think that the difference between a UX person that's really, really skilled and a UI person that's really, really skilled is the UI person is a really good designer versus the UX person is a really good strategist, right? Where they can actually do some of the high level thinking and then boil that down into suggestions, right? The same way that you would have on-page optimizations for SEO, I would have on-page optimizations for CRO, right? Making sure that there's reviews and testimonials, making sure that the call to actions are very, very clear, making sure that everything is contextual, and making sure that we're using media in all the right places. So the contextual portion of it is really important, because if you're going to sell somebody something, you need to give them all the context they need to buy. So for example, if I'm buying a tailor-fitted suit, right, I need to have all the context that I need about sizing, about measurements, about returns, about exchanges, about shipping time. All of that needs to be readily accessible to me. Otherwise, I won't feel comfortable making the purchase.
Right. Yeah, I think that a mistake that a lot of small agency, I mean, not just anyone in general, right? When they think about getting their website redesigned, is if you go to a designer, like a UI designer, and you give them your requirements, they're basically going to take what you already have and just put different lipstick on it, right? Make it look a little bit better, which doesn't necessarily solve the problem. Like when you're rebuilding your website, when you're rebranding, you have to go through that again. I'm beating a dead horse here, but the audience discovery process. But more than that, understand like, okay, once we understand who our audience is, what type of design styles, what type of layouts like vibe with them? Like, is this an industry where like 90% of our traffic is going to be coming from like social media and Instagram? Like, how do we design? We should design that experience first. This is another thing, is that like people are always like, design mobile first. Like, no, like my websites do 90% desktop. Like, why the fuck would I start with a mobile design? You know what I mean? Like, it's a secondary thought. Like, so it's really like, these are the things that make the difference. Like, I see UX as a function of marketing because UX will make you more money. Like, I can tell you firsthand, like, you know, I've been through it. I've designed dozens, hundreds of websites now at this point. And like, it's you should, if you have $5,000 to invest in a website, you should invest $4,000 with a UX strategist, somebody who can do wireframes, layouts, like really understand who your customer is, and then go to Upwork and hire a UI designer. Go to Behance and find someone whose portfolio you like and be like, here's the layouts. These are 4 design styles that I like. Take this and put this on this. Like, a lot of people get mistaken, like when it comes to creativity, like they think that creativity is always just kind of like drawn up on a whiteboard, like in a big ad agency. Like, no, creativity is borrowed from most times. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me in web design, the creativity comes in the UX process, not in the actual design process. And that's why, like, I think especially agencies really struggle with it, because in offering a good design service, because they should be investing their money in the research, the layouts, not, you know, who's got the best design trend right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost broken in a sense.
Right. The strategy that a lot of people do take is very similar. And it's not something that any UX strategist would recommend, because you're spending all this time and spending all this money building a product that nobody ever sees and nobody ever tests until you launch it, which is never ideal, right? The best thing that you can do is go and iterate and then go and test, right? Go and get that in front of a couple potential customers. Go on platforms like usertesting.com and get some people to review it. Anything that you can do to validate designs is going to be more effective, and you don't need to do that with colors. You can do that with black and white, you know, just basic text. And that's another problem that I see a lot of times happening too, is that people go and they hire a designer before they're clear on what they want to build, kind of like what you said. And what the designer ends up doing is just lorem ipsum, lorem ipsum, lorem ipsum, right? And it's not actually something that you could then review as a founder and say, yes, this is going to work, or no, this is going to work, because it has no context, right? It may look nice, it may be on trend, it may use all of the best colors you've ever seen in the world and the best typography, right? But none of that matters if your messaging is not clear, if users are not feeling trustworthy, or a lot of trust from you guys when they're visiting your website. And if the value proposition is not clear, it's just not going to matter how nice your website looks.
Absolutely. So what do you say we, some members of the Blueprint submit some sites to us? I know you have some sites. Let's do some, I hate the word teardowns because it sounds so negative, but let's review some live examples of sites, and give some feedback. I'm going to,
Sure.
you can share your screen if you want to.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get that shared. 1 second.
Word. And anybody watching on Facebook, if you guys have any questions, we got some chatter, some engagement that's helpful. If you guys have any questions for David, you know, if you want some help with UX design, David's also a very talented developer as well. So just drop your comments. Cool. What do you got, David?
So this is a website that I didn't know that I enjoyed until you asked me to find some good examples of websites to review. Here's a fun fact: I can't keep a plant alive to save my life. I got some for Christmas; they're all dead. You know, they're dying. So this is a huge problem for me, is I don't really know how to take care of these plants, even though we live in South Florida and there's always sun. Some of them need more, some of them need less, some of them need more water, some of them need less water. So it's very difficult for me to go out to like a Home Depot and purchase a plant, because I don't get to get all of that information without having to go and read a bunch of labels, right? So what this company does, it's the Sill.com. It's e-commerce for plants, right? And it's a super basic concept, but they hold your hand through the entire experience, right? So you land on their website and you try to exit. I just wanted to show this exit intent pop-up. They automatically offer users 10% off, right? They're not going to let a user leave without at least trying to capture their email, and they're willing to give the user 10% off for that email to then run them through a marketing campaign, right? I've gone ahead and signed up a few weeks back, and they'll send you an email every 2 days. One will be about the plants that they have. The second is going to be about plant care, and it alternates like that for about 2 weeks, right? If we go to the actual website, you'll see that the branding is really, really minimal, right? I don't even think you can see it right here.
It's got that that hymns vibe.
Yeah, but the product photography is excellent, right? It really lets you see the quality of the product. You can see that the call to action above the fold, super straightforward. Shop all plants. That's clearly what they want me to do, right? I can go ahead and I can scroll down, and they've got some featured stuff for me, right? That I can go ahead and review and go and shop into some of their popular categories, right? They also have another call to action to shop now. At this point, they've showed me 4 buttons to go ahead and shop. So it's very clear for me as a user that this is an e-commerce shop and that they want me to go ahead and take a look at their products, right? If I've gotten here and I haven't clicked one of the 5 shop now buttons, then they're probably going to start switching into more top of the funnel content, right? So how to start growing your own plants, how to set up right with the Sill, and they have this great video that will show you how to pot your plants, right? Then they have these cool little tiles, right, that give you some other call to action so you can check out locations or read more about them. And then another call to action to, again, have them take $10 off their order. So what's interesting to see here is, again, they focus the first half of the website on getting you to shop, and the second half of the website to get you to understand what the benefits are or why this is a service that you might want to use, right? Because if a user hasn't clicked in yet, then you need to do a good job of convincing them, right? There are some suggestions that I would make if I were auditing this website. I would say, let's try to get some user stories or testimonials on the homepage. Let's try to get some positive press or press logos on the homepage, just so that they could see that this is a reputable company, right? But other than that, it does a really, really good job of just connecting with the user and encouraging them to dig a little bit deeper, right? So if we go into their shop page, right, it's pretty straightforward, just like other e-commerce shops. But what they do, which I think is great, is that they categorize all of their plants based on use case. So you'll see here that there's a pet friendly tag, right? And if I go and I try to shop all plants, they actually have features here that you can go ahead and sort through, right? So I can sort by feature, by variety, or by size. And you can see here that they also have the benefit driven ones, right? Air purifying plants, or pet friendly plants, right? So you have to remember that when someone is using your website, they don't really care about all of the features and all of the bells and whistles that come with your product. What they really care about is what your product is going to do for them, right? So that's where understanding your personas, I think, is very, very important, because as a dog owner, I can't really buy plants that are not pet friendly, right? So being able to toggle this and then see all of the different plants that I could buy as a dog owner is very, very useful, and makes it a lot more likely for me to actually go and make a purchase. Not to mention, they have some great content, right? Basic survival guides. I need to read all of these because I can't keep any plants alive. 101s, DIY and design, or preventative care, right? I've received plants from several places in Miami that end up coming with bugs, right? Which is not great, but it's nice to know that I have a resource, whether I buy from here or not, that I can go and I can read content to learn how to get rid of those pests, right? So we have to make sure that when we're building a website, we're not just pushing product on people, but we're actually helping them, right? Helping them understand why it's a value. And even if they don't choose to buy from us, helping them get the information they need to make an educated purchasing choice. Because at the end of the day, if you educate your user, they're going to want to reciprocate, right? That's why when you go to get, let's say, samples, right, at the Asian food market or at the food court of your local mall, they always try to give you a free sample, right? Because that's the reciprocity principle. If I give you something, then you're way more likely to want to give me something in return, right? So this is really where I see a huge opportunity for marrying marketing and marrying user experience to make it a process that people want to go through, as opposed to a process that they have to go through.
The website is super clean, by the way. Super clean. So it's going back to the benefits. Like you said, you were filtering up top by benefits. It's super. First of all, really intelligent by them. Never seen that before. I mean, is that something that you would also recommend maybe for like a services-based business? Like, for example, an agency, right? If you offer SEO, Facebook advertising, design development, instead of just being like, hey, these are services we offer, would you suggest maybe they push benefits first, like increase organic traffic, like spread brand reach, something like that?
Definitely. And it's actually the way that WEBRIS is set up for the most part. It's benefit driven. It's not really pounding people over the head with the technical side of it, right? You describe how you can help my business grow, right? So right here, you're making a personal connection, and you've already identified the fact that I'm a business owner, right? So it feels like you're speaking directly to me, right? You also lead in right under the fold with client results, So we can see here a 230% increase in organic traffic, right? 78% increase, 97% increase, right? So if I'm coming here already with a problem in my head that I'm not getting enough organic traffic, and I see these results that you've gotten for other clients, it makes me a lot more willing to stick around to figure out how you did that for your client, right? And this is essentially what a case study is. It's a benefit driven post that you lead with the benefit that you were able to achieve for a client, and then break down the process that you took in order to get them there. I think that the most valuable thing that you can invest in as an agency owner is in building up these case studies, so that instead of saying you've built this website for $10,000, you can say, I built this website for $10,000 that went on to make $500,000 in revenue within the first 10 months, right?
Just off of that, sorry to break up your flow. Just off the back of that, so we're actually rebuilding this website, and the reason why I asked about the benefits thing was for personal research for myself, because instead of listing out our services, one of the thoughts that I'm pushing is let's just have case studies that are tied to a service, right? So the case study is 290% increase in organic traffic, because we used SEO. Another one could be like 200% increase in conversions, Facebook ads. You know what I mean? So we're actually potentially going to test removing this just because, in my opinion, if we're really digging into what our audience is, and I've just been a fan of really small sites recently. Sorry, my dog is tripping if he's making a lot of noise. But stripping it down to like force people to look at the pages that we care about the most, right? Like, I don't really need you reading about my analytics services. It only does like 2% of our revenue anyways, right? Like, what I really want you to do is focus on how much change we've driven for our clients. And I want you to read through, like, understand what we do based on the results that we can get. You know what I'm saying?
That's also like what the user is going to remember. You know what I mean? If they're researching this through a long tail keyword, right? They're looking for SEO services in Miami. They might have read 100 different websites that all say the same thing. You know what I mean? We'll get you better results. We'll get you better traffic, more qualified leads using SEO and analytics. But they don't really go into the benefits that they've gotten for other clients, and that makes it hard to empathize, right? What we're essentially trying to do is have them have an emotional reaction to what we're saying, not really remember every single word that we wrote. You know what I mean? So if I'm reading that as a business owner, right, and I see, let's say, content marketing, right, this actually takes you to a blog page.
Takes you to a blog post. Yeah, I never set up specific service pages for them. I was just linking a blog post for two of them. They linked a blog post. Analytics has a page though. Yeah.
Right. So if we're on analytics, right, there's trust building patterns, which is great. There's like a testimonial. We can see companies that you've helped, but everything else that's here is going to be roughly the same for everyone. Everyone is going to come to you with some sort of strategy. Then they're probably going to run an audit. Then they're going to work on implementing it, and then they're going to do reporting, right? So there's nothing new or novel or unique here, right? What's a lot more effective is if you say, here's a client that we did Google Analytics consulting. These are the results that they got. And here's a testimonial from the founder, right? Now, all of a sudden, I want to click learn more, right? But the way that it's set up where you're just talking about yourself, it doesn't make me react in any way at all, right? It's just information. I might as well be reading a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, understood. That's one of the reasons why we're looking at, well, I say me, looking at, I rebuilt the website I'm probably going to redo it again, but just stripping off these service pages because they're kind of dead ends. Like when I look at the data too, like they're not really driving any conversions. A lot of people are bouncing off of those pages, exiting. And I'm the same way. I go to a website and like, yeah, Klientboost is baller. Klientboost is awesome. Where, they have a singular what we do page, I think, which is cool, which basically is like, we're a marketing agency. This is our process, almost kind of like an about page for your services. And then the rest is just case studies and story driven case studies too. Not, I'm saying, like really telling the story, painting the picture. Just, I feel like it just not only converts better, but it's a lot stickier, as you said.
Yeah. It's just easier to remember, right? It's really interesting that I come back to Klientboost, but they've taken their website and they've made small adjustments over time to get it to the point where it's actually converting and it's actually working, right? It's very, very easy to tell, again, what they want me to do. They want me to get a free proposal, right? If I scroll down, these are trust building patterns, right? They want me to trust them before I go any further into the website, right? Look at all these companies, read these reviews, and then check out the way the testimonials are all categorized, right? They're categorized based on their three biggest personas. You're either a lead gen company, an e-commerce company, or a software as a service business. These are our three primary personas. that we want to attract. So we're going to put them on the homepage, and then we're going to surround that, literally sandwich it in between other trust building patterns, a testimonial and logos, right? So this is an interesting cue that I would take as an agency owner, to lead with the most benefit driven statement that you can, right? And you can see that here, right? Your PPC and paid social performance is about to take off. It's a benefit that I'm going to derive directly by getting a free proposal, right? And if I don't believe them, I can go and I can review all of this information so that I can feel a little bit more trust towards the company. Everything after that is all benefit driven. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to work with top talent. I'm going to grow very fast, right? And they've also taken into account the fact that if I've read all of these benefit statements, I should be at a point in the funnel where I have enough trust to then want to go ahead and get a free proposal, right? So they went ahead and put a scroll-based pop-up at around 70% of their page to then hit them again with that call to action. No thanks.
They've got a nice little element of personalization up top too, next to their logo, where they pull through your, I believe that's your Google avatar. So if you're logged in on Chrome, I would imagine you can pull that through. That's pretty dope.
They're actually pulling in my Twitter avatar, which is really interesting. They were using my website logo, which didn't exist, and recently it got updated to my Twitter, which is really, really interesting. But again, it's trying to make that personal connection. They're trying to have me have some sort of reaction, right, to having these two logos be together, right? So that so that it's memorable. You know, that's all they want you to do. Remember.
Yeah. No, it steps out at you, man. Especially when it's your logo, your picture. You're like, oh shit, how did I get there? And like, oh, that's smart. And it kind of just like, oh, okay, like these people know what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Even here, it's not working for them because they weren't able to pull in my first name. But normally they pull in your name and then they're going to tell you exactly what results they think they could get for you, right? Join the 323 businesses that got a proposal from us in December 2019, right? That helps me build a lot of trust in them, because over 300 people came to the site and requested a proposal, and they tell me exactly what I'm going to get, right? Competitor research, a unique growth plan, and what we charge, right? And it's relatively no risk to me. I don't have to invest any money, right? All they have to do is spend time warming me up as a user. And I think they do a great job of that through their resources and through their blog, as well as their case studies, right? If I am here trying to work on a PPC client and I have no idea what I'm doing because I'm a UX person, right? I may go through all of these posts. I may go through their podcasts and try to learn a little bit more about PPC. That may work when I'm trying to service a smaller client, but eventually, right, there's going to be a client that comes to me and says, hey, we're looking to do $100,000 a month in Google ad spend. Can you point me to someone? And the company that I'm going to remember is the one that had the most benefit driven statement, right? And it's probably going to be Klientboost. Of all the different PPC companies that I've reviewed, and I'm actually currently designing or redesigning a PPC client's website, right? So that's why these guys are still kind of top of mind for me.
Is it the website that I think it is that you're redesigning?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, dude, it's funny, whenever we talk about agency websites, Klientboost is always like the number one reference that people throw out. Like, they've done a very good job of setting their UI style. That's a good example where they set that illustration UI style, and as you said, they're building around it. And that's all UX that they're doing. You know what I mean? It's they're figuring out different areas of the website that they can improve, design systems, all that stuff. But continue.
So this is something that I wanted to throw into the mix. It's more of an educational type site, so it's very similar to the Blueprint. But these guys were essentially an agency like you, but they grew out of working with clients and they launched their own educational platform. Now they make all their money through here. They recently redesigned their website. They documented the whole thing. If you're interested, reach out on the Slack channel and I'll share the URL. But the redesign was interesting to watch because they took it from being focused on what they provide, the resources, the tools, the groups, and then they put it around a mission, right? Something that they want to accomplish. In this case, their billion is to impact the lives of 1 billion people. And they're using the hashtag 1 billion minus one, so that it's clear that me visiting this website, it's one less person that they need to get to that goal that they have, right? Klientboost did something very similar in order to connect with their users, which was they were publishing, I think, a vlog on the road to 1 million in recurring revenue, right? Which helps me as a total random person on the street then get pulled into this story that they're laying down, and helps me get emotionally invested in the company, right? So I think it's really, really important to note what the motivations of your users are, and always try to build something around those motivations. That is always going to give you way better return on investment than pretty designs, really nice photos, even really great witty copy, right? Is having a purpose and then making someone feel like they're included in that, right? That they're a part of it, that they're somehow making it possible. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
So let's check out a B2B SaaS site, which I think would kind of round this out. And my go-to is Slack, because I think they do a really, really great job. But I do want to dive a little bit deeper into how you could use personas to increase conversions and increase relevance on your website. And I think that Typeform does a really great job of that. So if you go to typeform.com, right, they lead with a really straightforward heading: forms and surveys for the people, right? Very inclusive. It sounds like it's for me. Um, the benefits that or the actions that they want me to take are either to sign up or to see examples. This is really important, and something that I feel like a lot of B2B SaaS companies forget about. It's the fact that people don't want to sign up for free until they know what they're getting, right? Your email is a coveted piece of information that you're not giving out to just anybody. So when you're trying to sell a service or a tool, you need to let them see an example, play with it. Anything that you can do to make it easier for them to imagine themselves using the product. And actually, if you scroll down, if you click it, it'll scroll your page down, and then they hit you with this copy that says something for every stage of the customer journey, right? What's interesting is that they have 4 main samples, but then under that, they then push these personas, right? So if you're a marketer, right, you might click on Jonas to hear what his story is. If you're a CEO or a founder, then you might click on Priscilla. If you're a UX researcher, then you might click on Christina. So this is a really interesting way to show your product's features and benefits, while also making sure that there's optional paths for your primary user personas, right? If we scroll up a little bit further, right, it says get inspired by someone like you, and it has essentially a call to action for each of these, so that we can see how they use Typeform, right, and how they're successful with their product. It's kind of a recurring theme, right, to make sure that your user can imagine themselves using your product, using your service, purchasing something, and that they know that by making that call, filling out the form, signing up, that they'd get access not just to the product or the service, but also to the benefits that you're presenting to them.
Word. Do you have more sites you want to go through?
So I would say probably Slack is a really important one. You would think that they really wouldn't have to worry about personas, because they're so large and they encompass so many different types of use cases. But the reality is that they talk about their product, but they've also built out a solution section of their website that talks about all of the different verticals that you could use Slack for, and how it's being used in that vertical, right? So in this case, they've identified 9 or 10 different industries. So let's say marketing, which is the most relevant one. If I'm a marketer, I might be coming and clicking this, right? So now we can see how marketing teams use Slack. There's really, really great photos of the product, right? That it kind of makes me feel like I've already signed up or I'm already getting onboarded just going through their website. They talk about results that they've gotten, right? In this case, 16% faster execution of marketing campaigns with a report that we can go ahead and read, right? So again, a benefit-driven call to action in order to solidify that idea in their mind that Slack is for marketers. Again, here we have more about the actual product, but then we have some trust building photos here. So these are logos, marketing integrations, right? So if I'm a marketer, I definitely care about this kind of stuff. So these kinds of pages are a really, really interesting way to go and build a part of your website that's just speaking to one specific type of user. You know, taking all of the pain points that that user feels and addressing it on the website or on that page is going to be a lot more effective than going into your homepage and trying to address all pain points for all people, right? That's never going to be effective because your product is not for everyone. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't solve every problem because there's no product like that. You need to niche in as far as you can, and then you need to really figure out how can I help this person or this type of person with my product, and just hit them over the head with benefits and results. Right? And that's what they've done, benefits and results all the way down. And if you reach the bottom, then they hit you with more resources, right? So that you have something to do. This is an issue that I see on a lot of websites, especially lead gen websites. They will put information on a page, let's say on the about page, they'll spend 3-4 paragraphs talking about their company and the history and why they're so great. And then there's nothing on the site. There's maybe a call to action to get a proposal or contact us, but that's it. There's no resources, there's no case studies, there's no guides, how-tos, no videos. There's nothing that's bringing value to me as a user. And as we've already discussed, if you're not giving me any value, I won't be reciprocating and filling anything out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Dude, I feel like Slack has redesigned their website like 20 times in the last year, no?
They definitely have, but for good reason, right?
Dude, I mean, when you have that much resource too, like they probably have like droves of like the most talented UX UI people in the whole world, really, at this point, you know?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that's why it's even harder, I think, to actually make the redesign successful, because you have so many people that are giving their opinion, and you have to constantly test every little change that you make. Otherwise, you won't be able to measure the impact. So it's actually a lot more difficult for, I think, a company like Slack than for a small agency that's maybe just a couple of people, because you could be a lot more lean and a lot more agile. You know, you can go and show your website to 10 people on a platform like usertesting.com, and you will probably have, you know, 1/10 of the monthly traffic that you're getting giving you input. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's just a lot more effective to go and to test these little things that you're doing, as opposed to rolling out, you know, an expensive design or an expensive UI before you actually have people click on buttons and give you their feedback. So
Yeah.
that iteration cycle, I think, is really important. And I think that that's also where finding a UX strategist that you can partner with is a really important thing to try to do if you are an SEO agency.
Absolutely. I first of all, for anyone watching, David is available for hire as a consultant. Strongly recommend you use him. You can see he has tons of insights and knowledge. But I think also too, just as you said, I view, you know, we obviously work mainly with SEO agencies, and a lot of people will want to start doing like Facebook ads because it's also in demand, or like social media. But to me, if you're already staffed to do SEO, you have to build an entirely new company basically to do advertising, right? But a natural pivot, a better way to stack services, either pay-per-click because it's still search engine marketing, or UX, not even design, but like specifically UX. Because, you know, I had a call today with one of our Blueprint members, you know, part of our free consulting sessions, and he was asking me, about affiliate marketing. And, he's like, after we get through the SEO process, what's next? And I was like, the next thing that you want to do is focus on your UX, because, understanding how people are tracking down the website, where they're clicking, like that's going to make you more money. Like if you literally just switch the positions to where you're getting more clicks, you're getting better quality traffic, blah, 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 etc. And it just goes so much more naturally, the UX process with SEO. And after you've already done that, and basically it's almost like CRO in a sense, but just a lot more in depth, right? CRO is great for testing campaigns. It's good for testing pages, but UX is really the process of kind of like CROing your entire business. And then also then feeding into the next part, which is really the branding element of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we got. We're almost out of time. If there's anything else you want to talk about, David, the floor is yours.
So I don't think so. If you're a Blueprint member and you're interested in getting your website reviewed, you can go ahead and drop a comment on our Slack channel. I'll be going through and picking a handful of people and just filming a quick 10-minute review, giving you some actionable insights on some improvements that I see. Again, take that with a grain of salt, because any person that you hire to do UX that is not diving into your analytics, looking at bounce rates, exit rates, time on page, they're not really looking at the whole picture. They're just doing an assessment of the usability of the site, right? So if you're interested in doing something a little bit more deeper, something that actually involves analytics, something that actually involves performance testing, responsiveness testing, accessibility testing, then feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at davidmartin.co or uxhacks.com.
Awesome, man. Well, as always, we appreciate your time. And yeah, as David said, for all you guys on Facebook, I've been monitoring your questions. I didn't ask them to him because these are reserved for Blueprint members. You could even be a free member. Just make sure you join the Slack channel if you're in the Facebook group. And you can chat with David directly. But Facebook is really just more of a broadcasting tool for us. So if we didn't get to your questions, join the Blueprint, and whoever we have on next, you will be able to ask directly. Again, David, thank you for your time. And to everyone out there, thank you guys for joining us. This will be available on YouTube by the end of the day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, Dave.
Cheers.